Welcome, everybody, to our final Space Club career chat. First, I have to say congratulations to all of our teams and the schools that participated. You made it. You made it to the final week of Mission to the Moon, and we have a really exciting guest speaker today. Of course, we're going to have our raffle prizes and our grand school prize at the end, so make sure you stick around. So once again, I am Natasha Wilkerson. We have Aspen Meineke here with us, your mission control team for our last Space Club career chat for the fall. And our guest speaker today, we're going to jump right to it. So this is Dr. Chamitoff, and he is joining us from College Station, Texas, where he's currently a professor of aerospace engineering. But previously, he was a NASA astronaut for 15 years, including living in space for 200 days as a flight engineer, science officer, and mission specialist. His background is in electrical and aeronautical engineering. We're really excited to have him. And Dr. Chamitoff, feel free to turn on your camera, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Well, good. Well, thank you. And I'm happy to be here and to meet everybody. This is a pretty cool club you guys have. I'm really excited about this. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'd like to answer all the questions you have. You have a lot of good questions. See if I can forward the screen here. Okay. Yeah, so this is a picture of the International Space Station, which hopefully you recognize. It's easier to kind of tell, the shape of it from the picture in the upper right corner here. But this picture, I'm showing you this because this was a really special moment in my whole career and my whole time as an astronaut. This was a time when we climbed up to the highest point on top of the space station on the day that we were finishing the assembly. This was the very last spacewalk of the whole shuttle program. And the shuttle's over here. You can see the nose sticking up over on this part of the screen over here. And this was a wide angle picture of everything that was in space at the end of this program, that it took a dozen years of assembly and more than 100 spacewalks. There was a 1,000 hours of spacewalking time, and we'd crossed that threshold during the spacewalk. And to me, this was really remarkable moment because I had been working on this for a very, very long time, almost 20 years. I was a student and when I in university, and had the opportunity to work on this when the whole thing was nothing but PowerPoint slides. And now it's funny because I'm showing you a PowerPoint slide, but it's a picture of the real thing that I took when I was out on it. That's me in the upper corner here, climbing around on the outside during that spacewalk. And so, this was an amazing, bookend, to my whole career, wanting to work in space my whole life, and then finally getting the chance to do this. And I just hope that all of you guys get an opportunity in your life to be part of something much bigger than yourself, and and get to experience the kind of things that could happen when so many people on such an amazing team work together. So, okay, so a little more about my personal story. I guess maybe you would recognize this picture. The fact that it's black and white. This is an old picture, right, of the mission control room. And this is the way it was when I was a kid. And there I am, about 6 or 7 years old, something like that. And this was not, I was in a different country. I was living in Canada at the time. This was an amazing thing that was going on. And I remember my dad just being fascinated by the space program. And, he kept saying, like, who are these people? How do they get to have this amazing job? That's so cool. And then one day, many, many years later, I got to work there and now have that same job. And this is the control center, kind of what it looks like now. And I got to work both as a guidance and control officer, but also once I was a crew member as the Capcom. Capcom is the one who's talking to, it means capsule communicator, the one who's talking to the crew. And then eventually I got to be the crew. And so I really got to experience this whole thing. When I was about the age of that picture, maybe a little bit older, my family took a trip to Florida and it just so happened to coincide with this launch. This is Saturn V, and this was Apollo 11. This was the moon. This was the moon landing mission, and I happened to be there to see it. Not this close. I was watching from a beach. Apparently, I was climbing on a jungle gym at the time that the launch happened. But this set the stage for me. After this point, I remember telling my father on that day that that's what I want to do, and kind of kept that dream alive the whole time. Here's a couple of pictures of me at the Cape, and then yeah, the Star Trek thing is, and you may be more familiar with the more recent Star Treks than you are with the old ones, but I grew up with this, and it was very strange because this Star Trek thing was happening at the same time as the space program was happening, and I was a little kid, and to me it was a little hard to separate, what was real and what was, fiction. It was especially hard because this guy right down here, I don't know if you know who that is. Hopefully some of you do. This is Captain Kirk, right? He was the commander of the Starship Enterprise. And it turned out he went to school with my father in real life. And so, my father said, "Hey, I know this guy," and so there was something real about that to me that made the whole dream very real. All right, so just quickly, I started, jumping way ahead. I started in it, in the 17th class of astronauts. I'm over here in the back, and it was on several missions. So the first one was a shuttle mission, to the space station, but I got dropped off and stayed up there for 6 months. So I was with 2 Russian crewmates for that time on Expedition 17. And then there was a change in crew, and basically Sandy here came up and replaced me, and I went down with the shuttle. This is the shuttle crew that brought Sandy up. There's Sandy, and there's me. We're swapping places. And so she stayed up and I went down. That was after 6 months. And in the meantime, while I was up there, Mike here and Yuri came up on a Soyuz capsule and swapped out with my Russian crewmates. Yuri here is Russian, but Mike was American. And so I came back on this shuttle flight, and then I went again with this crew. This was the last flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour. And on this flight, I got to do 2 spacewalks, which was amazing. And I'll can tell you more about that in the questions of it. But just one thing I want to say, I don't, only got a few minutes here as an intro, but what we're doing on the space station is, a lot of science, a lot of things trying to understand how things work in space. There's a lot of physical processes that we study in all different branches of science here on Earth, and they're all different when you take away gravity. So everything from combustion to how materials behave and how plants grow and how the body behaves and microbiology. These things all vary with gravity, and so when we take gravity away, you can really study different aspects of the physics and the chemistry and so on. And so a lot of experiments, studying the effects of microgravity on all these processes. But it's also a very special place for studying space, looking up, because you don't have the atmosphere in the way. And so we do a lot of things that are astronomy related and solar physics and stuff like that. This is a cosmic ray detector. It's a $2 billion experiment we have on the space station that we put up on my last mission. The other thing you can do is look down, right, and study the Earth. This is a volcano going off on Earth from space. And it's a fantastic vantage point for seeing how the Earth is changing, over time, which we know it is, and we can see it in many different places that we monitor from space. And especially if something unique happens, like a volcano, we can, capture that, from orbit. And the other thing about the science on orbit is that the whole thing is an experiment, right? I mean, everything we do up there is new, and so there's an engineering. It's all engineering. It's all these systems that keep us alive and fly the space station. And somehow we have to understand how to make these systems work so we can live on the moon and Mars and go other places. And so it's a big, giant engineering experiment. Okay, well, I'm out of time for my intro, but where we're headed with all this, We're going to the moon. That's the Artemis mission is coming up really soon. 2024, we're planning to land on the moon. We don't know if we'll make it by 2024, but it's not going to be too long. This is the rocket that's going to take us there, the Space Launch System, SLS. And right now, there's a lot of projects going on that I'm involved in as well for lunar mining and construction and all sorts of things like that. So it's a very exciting time in space, and hopefully you guys can have a role in all of this. All right, well, that's it I have for an introduction. So I'll hand it back over to you, Natasha.
Perfect, thank you. And while we're switching here, I saw something about Zero Robotics. Were you part of that, starting that program?
Yeah, I started that program, with MIT and NASA. So Zero Robotics was a program where there's these, we call them spheres. They float around the space station. You can program them to do different things. There's a picture of them right there.
Excellent.
And yeah, I thought I saw a picture there pop
It'll
up.
come up.
But yeah, it was an experiment. But I was, I wanted to program them to do something as part of one of those experiments, and it turned out to be a great idea to have students program these robots. So we set up a whole program for students to be able to program these robots, compete in teams, and fly them. And now that became like a 16-country program that has been very successful. And it's really cool because after you write your program to fly the robots and to solve certain problems, the crew gets to fly your algorithm in space. So the final event is all the students get to work with the crew on the space station to fly their algorithms in the competition. So it's a lot of fun.
That is cool. Well, we have several teachers listening, so I encourage them to check that out in case they want to bring that forward.
Yeah. I think it's taken a pause this year because they're switching to a new set of robots, and it's supposed to start up again next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that great intro. And that leads us right to the questions that the students have. So we've had teams that have been submitting all week. And so Aspen and I are going to trade off on asking you a couple questions. So first we have from ACES in New York. Why did you choose the career you did?
Well, one of the reasons was kind of what I showed you, was that, I saw this launch of Apollo 11 and I've wanted to do it ever since. But I think also there's the engineering aspect to this that I've always liked, to learn about how things work, and then there's also maybe the exploration aspect to it. I've always, as a kid, always exploring and camping and hiking, and always trying to find out what's over the next peak. And so I think space was kind of the ultimate exploration and adventure that I always wanted to do that.
And a follow-up. So you went to college for electrical and then later aeronautical engineering. So what was your favorite thing that you learned in college from Space Astros in Texas?
Well, it's really interesting that you picked this picture to go with this question, because it turns out that robotics is the coolest thing that I thought I learned in college. I built a robot for my final project. It took about a year to do it, and it was at that time you didn't have a lot of things that you have today. Like now, everyone's building robots in high school and stuff, but there was no such thing when I was a kid, right? So it was really even to build one in college was kind of unusual at that time. And but I always thought programming something and then having it seemingly think on its own and do what it was programmed to do was really exciting. And so the connection with the robots has kind of been a theme all the way through.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, Aspen.
All right, so now our questions are, we had a lot of questions about what it was like going to the International Space Station. So our first question is, were you nervous or excited in the days leading up to going into space? From Voorhees Cosmonaut.
Yeah, actually, very much so. I think the thing is, it kind of depends, for whether you're going for a short time or a long time, and I think for my second mission, I was a lot less nervous than the first one. But the first one, I was going to be gone for 6 months, and I had never been there before. And so there's leaving your family, there's, you know, the kind of going into the unknown, knowing that it's going to be for a long time. And then there's the risk, you know, there's some risk of not coming back. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but there is some element of that. And so, yeah, definitely in the days, it was very emotional. You know, it's also a dream come true, right? So in that mixture of your emotions about that, it's you're nervous, you're excited, and it's overwhelming. Yeah.
Did you have any like rituals or things you would do like the day before going on a mission?
There's a lot of rituals. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rituals that there's a lot of NASA rituals, and there's a lot of, you know, Russian rituals too, if you're going the Russian route. You know, for example, there's we play a game of poker. We get in the flight suits that you see actually sitting in that chair. You guys picked up great pictures here. They sitting in this chair right here. This is when we get suited up, right? And then we in that suit, completely ready to go, we actually play poker. And the idea is that the commander has to lose. You play until the commander loses, because you want to use up all the commander's luck, bad luck. And then, you know, so that when his bad luck is when his or her bad luck is completely used up, then you're ready to go. So there's a lot of strange rituals like that. It's fun.
All right, the next question from Dedication in New York. What does it feel like when you are launching into space?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, there's the, you know, like I said, there's emotional part, right? So it's kind of like, for me, it was, you know, I was kind of like waiting for that moment and finding it very hard to believe that that moment was so close, you know, after a lifetime of dreaming for it, working toward it. But then when it, you know, the engine lights and you know you're going, it's really amazing, because I don't know if you can, well, how will you be able to see me, but here, can you see this? I'm not sure if you can. Yeah. So here's a shuttle, and you know, the shuttle's sitting on the launch pad, and the first thing that fires, you know, are the boost. You know, are these three engines here, and this thing is sitting on the boosters, and so the whole thing tips forward, and then it springs back, and then the boosters light, and then it goes. So, and that's a 7-degree tilt, but you're way at the top, right? So you're sitting in their seat, and the whole thing that you're it's like stepping on a tall building that starts to lean forward like it's gonna fall, and then goes back, and then when it takes off, it's unbelievable. The roar is unbelievable, and the acceleration is very impressive, and then when the solid rocket boosters stop firing, it's not as shaky anymore, you know, and then it's just then there's the acceleration. It feels like somebody's standing on your chest, and you can't, you know, you can breathe, but because you know, you've practiced it, but it's hard to breathe, you know, and that goes on for about 8 minutes. So it's a pretty exciting ride. And then suddenly engines stop and you're just floating. So it's a great Disneyland ride.
Wow. All right. Okay, so now we've launched, we're on the ISS. What was your first thought when you got to the International Space Station? A question from the Gravity Girls.
Yeah, so you know, there's two things here. One is getting to space for the first time. And at that point you're in the shuttle, and you know, you're not near the space station yet. And you know, and I think the thing that at least the first time, the thing I was thinking there was, you know, am I going to get sick? You know, how's this going to feel? And you're kind of waiting to see how does this feel. And then you get used to it, and you know, you do your thing. You do it. You know, you're actually in orbit for a couple of days before you actually dock with the space station. But what's really neat is seeing the space station for the first time, because it's kind of like flying in an airplane. If you ever fly an airplane at night and you happen to look out the window and see another airplane, you know, you can see you know, like maybe city lights below and maybe some indication of where the ground is. But when you see another light up in the sky, you know, moving, you just know it's another plane, you know. but when you get to space, you don't expect to see that. You think, well, everything is down there on the planet, right? But then you see another light, and it's another ship, and it's one of ours, right? And you keep getting closer and closer and closer, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's just amazing. It's just this, it's bigger than a football field, right? I mean, if you try to lay it down on a football field, it would take 2 football fields side by side to get around it. It's that big. And so it's huge, as you approach it. And but when you get on there, what you really notice is the space, because you're in a shuttle, which is, not as much bigger than a capsule, but it's still a very limited space for a couple days. And then you get inside the space station, it's like, oh wow, now you're in a building. It's really amazing that we were able to build that thing in space. It's pretty impressive to come into it for the first time.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so now we've made it to the ISS. So they want to know from New York, what are some things about living on the ISS that many people don't know?
Well, the one thing, there's one thing that comes to mind. There's a giant rabbit up there,
Really?
a giant stuffed rabbit head. It's about this big, and I don't know how somebody got it up there. They kind of snuck it up there somehow,
How do you
and
sneak it up?
it's hiding behind one of the storage areas. And every once in a while, it floats out by itself, makes its way out, and you kind of see it floating around in the cabin, and you hope that nobody saw it on NASA TV. But somebody brought it up there to show, basically for their kids, when they talk to their kids. And so I think we all used it, so you can turn on the, you kind of have a two-way. We'd have a two-way. My kids were only like 3.5 or 4 when I was up there the first time, and so I'd start off a video conference with them, and then they would see an empty module, and then the rabbit head would rise up into view. And it was really big. It's like half of a person, just the head. So there's some other stuff up there like that stays hidden.
I was not expecting that answer.
All right, and this is kind of like a combo question, so lots of questions in this one. What was the scariest moment you experienced when you were aboard the ISS? What was the hardest thing you had to do? And did you do any spacewalks? From Astronaut Divas in California.
Well, yeah, so in terms of scariest moments, probably the scariest moment was during a spacewalk, actually. During my very first spacewalk, I had an emergency alarm go off in the suit. And I know if you've seen space movies before, when someone has an alarm go off in the suit, because they're running out of oxygen or something else, they have a leak or something like that. There's an alarm. It's just like a smoke alarm kind of thing. I had an emergency alarm go off in my suit while I was on the first spacewalk. And so for a few seconds, that was scary, because you have to somehow get yourself back inside, and it takes a long time to get back inside and repressurize. But it turned out to be something that we have a control display that tells you what's going on, and I was able to understand, from training, what that message meant and exactly what was wrong with the suit. And I was able to continue the spacewalk. I just had to wait a while for mission control to agree with me on that. And it was my carbon dioxide monitor. It failed. And so I was getting a carbon dioxide high message, and it wasn't really high. And we just had to realize that. And we get special training to recognize our own symptoms of having high carbon dioxide. And so I just had to watch out for that and keep going. But for a few seconds, it was an alarm going off in a spacesuit, and that's kind of scary. Hardest thing, in space, every day was, hard work, and challenging. But I mean, the hardest thing was saying goodbye. That for the whole mission, just saying goodbye to your family was what was hard. After that, it was just awesome. You know, and it was hard to be away, but um, yeah. But in terms of you know, there was one time where I had to sit and do nothing for a really long time, and that was hard. What was going on was the Russians were doing a spacewalk, and I had to be the place they were doing the spacewalk meant that I had to be sitting inside the Soyuz capsule, which was our escape vehicle, the whole time. Because if something happened during their, if something went wrong during their spacewalk, I would have been separated from our escape vehicle by a vacuum, which is where their airlock was to go out on their spacewalk. So I had to be inside the rescue vehicle the whole time. And so it turned out to be about 12 hours that I had to sit in this space by myself and just wait.
Wow.
And I couldn't do anything useful. And yeah, so that was hard. Maybe it wasn't hard to do. It was hard not to do anything. And yeah, I did 2 spacewalks. I did both of those were my last mission, and they were part of the final assembly of the space station. Yeah.
Very cool.
How long is a spacewalk?
It varies. I think one of mine was 8.5 hours and 7.5 hours or something like that. So it's roughly 8 hours.
Wow.
And does every astronaut that goes to the ISS do a spacewalk, or do you get selected, or?
No, you have to be selected. There's a lot of special training for that. And then also there has to be a need right at the time to do it. So it actually turned out on my first mission, I was up there 6 months, and there was only one time something happened. There were no planned spacewalks. And at one point something happened where we might have had to go out and fix something, and it turned out they were able to wait on that. And so I never got to go out on my first mission. So it was only on my second mission that I got to do them. So, yeah. But that's really an amazing thing. It's so, it's the difference between, I guess it's kind of like, it's kind of like the difference between sitting in an airplane looking out the little window, which is what it's like being on the space station in a way, compared to skydiving. I mean, it's a very different experience, and it's something that most people really want to get a chance to do.
That's crazy.
So
Okay.
it's spectacular.
So we have a couple minutes, and if I'm going to switch to our last part where we had some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So these are just whatever comes to mind, some of the questions that the students have. So our first one, did you ever get used to being weightless from New Jersey?
Yeah, you do, so much so that you forget what it's like to have gravity. It takes about 6 weeks. Initially you have a fluid shift in your body because of the weightlessness, and so your face gets puffy and you feel kind of stuffed up. And about 6 weeks later, that kind of all goes away, and then you start to get really good at working in zero gravity and doing things upside down and sideways or whatever is the easiest way to do something. And at some point, you forget what it's like to stand, or sit. You're never leaning on anything, and I mean, I remember just like wondering what it would be like to be back in a gravity environment again. Like I actually got to the point where I felt like I didn't remember. It's really neat. And one more thing about that is just, it's really neat how adaptable we are, because, this is not our normal environment, but we adapt to it very well, and it becomes normal. It starts feeling like, well, this is normal life. In this place, we fly. You want to go somewhere, you fly. And the other place, you have to walk. It's pretty neat.
All right, next question. So we know you brought a chess set to the ISS. So who taught you to play chess, and how long have you been playing from Galaxy Invaders?
Well, I've been playing a long time. My dad taught me when I was 4. And so, yeah, I've been playing for a long time. And but it was really neat to play against. We played against Mission Control, and then we played against the 3rd grade chess champions, in the US when I was up there, and they won that game, by the way. So, yeah, it was a great way to interact with people back home.
Very cool. Okay, so this you talked a little bit about. What did it feel like when you first stepped on Earth after returning from space dedication in New York?
It's really, you're really amazed by gravity. You know, like you don't notice it's right now you're sitting in your chair, you know, and gravity's pulling you down and you just feel like it's normal. But after coming back from space, I could hold out my arm and go, oh my God, what is this thing that's pulling me? Like it's unbelievable how strong it is and it's pulling me down. You know, I could, it's like, it felt like I was in a, you know, how it would feel, I think, if, you know, you were standing in front of a very powerful fan that was blowing you. It's like, where's this force coming from? It's really impressive. And it's really nauseating when you first come back. I couldn't stand up or walk around at first without getting very sick. And I would crawl. I remember crawling on the first night in a room where I was staying. And I was trying to get to the bathroom, and I was falling while crawling on all fours. I was falling. It was amazing. It goes in about 3 days. It goes away. And if it's a short flight, like a shuttle flight that was just 2 weeks or something like that, it's only a matter of hours before you kind of feel normal again. But it took a good 3 days from the space station.
All right. What was your initial dream job before you wanted to become an astronaut from Supernova Tech in New York?
This was it. This is what I've always wanted. The first time I thought of being anything, this is what it was. And I never thought of anything else.
All right, and then our last one, and I know a lot of students were wanting to know, what advice would you give to someone wanting to be an astronaut? Alien invasion in California.
Yeah, so a lot of good questions today. Thank you so much. You know, I think to be an astronaut or anything else you want to be in life, I think the thing is to be really passionate about, find out what you're passionate about and pursue your passions. Takes a lot of hard work, and you know, and then believe in yourself. You know, you believe you can actually achieve it. Those are the two things that make a difference.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I was excited. I wish I could keep you for another couple hours, ask more questions. So I'm going to have to bring you back. But thank you again for taking the time.
Sure.
And we're going to switch now to our prizes. So thanks again.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so now let me share my screen again. That was pretty cool, Aspen.
So cool to hear the stories.
All right, so the part everybody's been waiting for. We have our project highlights video, and I'm actually going to skip this slide so we can get to the prizes, but we've posted the link on YouTube. I will send it out through Goose Chase. You guys did an amazing job designing these bases, right? Like, we were just so impressed in 2 weeks how you took recycled materials and turned them into a colony on the moon, from the water towers to the solar panels. Wow. So check that out. But the part you're waiting for, that was the dramatic music teaser, our winners. All right, so Aspen.
So this week, one team will receive so for the team that wins, each student will be able to choose between the telescope or a Spherobolt robot, which is a robot like Dr. Chamitoff talked about. You can program it. Very, very cool. So Natasha, if you want to announce who the winning team is.
Okay, so we're doing it a little differently this time because we want to prove to you that this is totally random. And we have put all of the teams that completed the lunar base design project into this raffle wheel. We're calling it, it's from Picker Wheel. And so I'm going to do is hit spin, and let's see who our winner is. Oh, let me make fun music. The good people from New York. Congratulations. So we're going to contact your teacher for either a telescope or a Sphero robot. All right. Now we have some grand prizes for our schools. 72 teams reached the 25,000 point minimum to be entered in this raffle. 16 schools are going to be part of it, and 2 schools are going to win one of our grand prizes. So what's our first prize, Aspen?
Natasha, why don't you play that video? All right, so if you haven't guessed already, the first school will be winning a class set of model rockets. Super cool. If you've never shot a rocket before, it's such an amazing experience.
And this is in San Antonio at Leal Middle School, one of our first rocket launches with Space Club. Okay, so we're gonna do our wheel here. This is the 16 schools that are eligible to be part of this grand prize. And if your school wins, everybody that participated in Mission to Moon will get their own model rocket to launch and build. So let's see. Bloom Carroll Middle in Ohio, congratulations. Okay, one more.
And the second school winner will receive their very own in-house 3D printer. So Natasha, let's spin that wheel.
All right. So note here, if Bloom Carroll wins again, I'm going to have to respin it. So we want another winner for this final grand prize for that Flash Forge 3D printer. Hey, Open Door Christian School in Texas. Congratulations. All right, guys, that's it. We made it to the end of our mission to the moon. And for any of you guys still sticking around, I'm going to go ahead and play that highlights video because it was awesome. So if you need to leave, go ahead. But I'm showing the highlights video because I was just impressed with what you did.
Absolutely speechless watching that video. Incredible what you guys accomplished.
Okay, so that's it from us from Mission Control. Amazing job, everybody. Despite everything going on right now, I know several of you were working at home, in your living room, in your bedroom, building your rover and your robot hand and those plant devices, and we're just so proud of you guys. It's been an incredible fall semester. Congratulations to all the teams, and hopefully we will see you in future missions. Mission Control signing off.